Chuck Schumer's generation, Nancy Pelosi's generation, John Lewis's generation, they have so much to be proud of. It is time, though, for new leadership. The other generations, X, Millennials, Z, it's time for us to step up. The stage is waiting for us to lead, not just the party, but the nation right now.
Wow, that wasn't subtle. But you know he's not. He holds the record for breaking the longest Senate floor speech at 25 hours and 5 minutes. He likes to talk. Let's see if anything will happen. That's Senator Cory Booker saying that it's time for some new blood. That message creating an even bigger rift within the Democratic Party, which is already desperate for a cohesive message. The fight is growing over what direction the lawmakers on the left take next. Liberal Congressman Ro Khanna named names when it comes to replacing Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We have dynamic, young, new leaders.
Who are some of the top
Chris
names?
Murphy is a top leader. Cory Booker is a dynamic leader. Brian Schatz is a dynamic leader. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is someone whose ideology I appreciate. There are a lot of great talent. And really, is Chuck Schumer, when you think about it, just from a common sense test, do you think Democrats around the country think that Chuck Schumer should be the face of the future of the Democratic Party? Of course not.
Ooh, goodness. But still, Chuck Schumer has friends. Look at Senator Tim Kaine.
I don't tell Ro Khanna or AOC or anybody else who you should pick as your House leader, because I got a full-time job being a senator. I don't need to freelance opinions about House leadership. They should focus on their own leadership and let senators do what we need to do to keep this country moving forward.
Oh, boy. It's what I call dim-on-dim crime. Democratic strategist and friend of the Focus, Julian Epstein, argues it would be political poison for Democrats to allow the left to take over the party, the far left. He writes, what moderates must now do. He says organize their own party around the common sense center where most voters reside. You mean become more like Trump? That's how I read that. An established centrist wing has far more political electoral leverage than the progressive socialists do. Democrats need to lay out a platform that explicitly occupies the sensible middle lane. Meanwhile, a Washington Post piece is asking, Democrats spent a year at rock bottom. Have they learned any lessons? Well, they didn't have a bad November. There's that part. Oh, but those were mostly far-left liberals. Power panel now, Mehek Cook, Republican strategist, Megan Hayes, former Biden White House director of messaging and planning. Great to see you both. So, Megan, I'm going to start with you. How do you handle the far left, especially when they're winning in places like New York City? Mamdani.
Well, that was the only place that the far left won. So we did win races in Georgia and in Mississippi. We broke a supermajority.
Katie Wilson, Seattle?
So there's 2 states at the far coast, but everywhere else in Pennsylvania and other places, moderate Democrats did win. But these are local elections. This is what people in these local areas want. So if they want someone to the far left in the Democratic Party, that's great. And if they can win, that's good for them. And most of the places will want moderates, and that is what most of the country will be voting on and what we'll want for these local elections. When it comes to 28 and a presidential candidate, that's a different conversation that we can have.
Do you feel like you have to defend that all the time? Because, you know, I stopped at some names, but the names are longer than 2.
I don't feel like I have to defend it. I'm a moderate, as you know, and I don't have socialist policies. But the people of New York City voted for that. The people of Seattle, they're in a runoff there. That is what they want. But I can't dictate to those places what they want. I do know what's good for most of the country for a 28 candidate is going to be a moderate.
Well, Megan, these are some big cities, so we'll have to see how that pans out. A new headline reads this way. Democrats dip into the podcast and blog manosphere in search of the key to young male vote. The piece goes on to say the party is, quote, working on how to renew its appeal to young men after what it calls a sharp wake-up call in 2024. Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy says the party's treatment of men has a real effect. Watch this.
Generally, they were very anti-normal guys. The white guy, and this sounds, but was the bad guy, became the bad guy. And there's a lot of, white dudes who are like, well, I'm not the bad guy. Like, what are you getting mad at me for? And even with the Trump stuff, he won the election. And, you had a candidate basically calling you a deplorable or, you're a Nazi if you vote for Trump.
Mehek, is this a layering of problems on the left?
Harris, it is. Democrats no longer have a coalition today. There's not even a middle. We should stop even talking about it. They're in an all-out civil war, and you're seeing it firsthand. They had a blue light wave in blue cities and some of these other states, and they think now that they're winning. But the truth of the matter is, in the heartland where I live in Ohio and swing states where President Trump won 7 out of 7, and the polling is showing that Democrats are out of touch, and I'll tell you why. It's because they can't tell you the common truths that Americans want to hear, that girls have 2 X chromosomes, boys have an X and a Y. Girls belong in girls' sports, boys belong in boys. White men are not inherently bad. Hamas is a terrorist organization. If you want affordability, it's not through socialism. That takes you to breadlines. It's through the American dream and capitalism. When Democrats continue to double down, and then you have Ro Khanna that's just changing Chuck Schumer for now some of these other senators like Cory Booker, you're just changing the face. The ideology hasn't changed. The principles still hate America.
You know, I would say this on the affordability. President Trump and his administration now are hitting that issue hard. So that will be good for the American people and possibly problematic for the party opposite aisle who said that they own that issue. Former First Lady Michelle Obama says that the United States still isn't ready for a woman president. Watch this.
As we saw in this past election, sadly, we ain't ready. That's why I'm like, don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time. You know, we got a lot of growing up to do. And there's still, sadly, a lot of men who do not feel like they can be led by a woman, and we saw it.
Oh, my goodness, Megyn. We are strong women across the spectrum in this country. We do not need to be Michelle-splained. That is not why Kamala Harris lost.
So I agree with you. I don't think that's why Kamala Harris lost. I do think that 2 things can be true. I don't think a lot of people, and there was many polling that said some men would not vote for a woman. But I don't think that doesn't mean our country's not ready for a strong woman. I don't think we've seen the right woman candidate yet. And hopefully that comes to fruition either from a Republican or a Democrat in 28. And I look forward to the day that we do have that. I don't agree with her that we are not ready. I just don't think we've seen the right candidate yet.
So, Megyn, why is she out there saying this? I mean, is there a new book coming?
She is selling a book.
Well, there you go. Just like Kamala. That's when she started talking about what she did or didn't know about former President Biden's health. Democrat strategist Michael LaRosa is sharing major reasons why voters stopped listening to Democrats. And there's one in particular.
My party has been out of control with the hyperbole, the aggressive rhetoric, the Nazis, the fascists, the autocrats, all this stuff. I don't condone all of this rhetoric because, you know, if everybody's fascists, if everybody's Nazis, no one is. And that's where my party has gone, and we've got to stop.
So this is interesting, Heck. There is at least a growing number of voices, I should say, there are on the left trying to dissect what's going on. And that is actually healthy because it doesn't make it look like the rest of the public was imagining things.
Well, we're not. Look, inflammatory rhetoric is not leadership. And many in the left are saying that. This is why you're seeing 70% of voters saying Democrats are out of touch. It's not resonating, though, with the leaders of the Democrat Party. And I have to be honest with you, Harris, we don't care who's sitting in that leadership chair in Washington because they don't dictate the politics of our home life, of affordability, of the American dream. And many leaders are saying, get back to the issues that matter. Stop the violent rhetoric. They learned nothing after Charlie Kirk's assassination. So Republicans need to just focus on the main message and not get pulled in with vile rhetoric, inflammatory remarks, and especially the identity politics. If we stay on message on affordability and how to deliver that American dream and why socialism is bad, instead of just telling people that it's bad, we will continue to win the midterms and beyond.
Well, there are millions of people who came to this country legally, and they have left areas where socialism failed. And they are speaking loudly now, so they can become part of the conversation, too. Ladies, it's great to see you, always in focus. Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.